Please connect to VMware workstation. Yesterday, previous session completed ESXi host installation. Now we are going to see how to configure, what are the things we need to check at the console. Once the ESXi host installation is completed, whatever the console we connected, that console, what we call it as DCUI screen, DCUI, Direct Console User Interface. Once the ESXi host installation is done, where we need to configure IP configuration, as soon as any operating system, as soon as installation of any operating system, the first component we are going to check the network interface. Once the network is done, we are ready to proceed next steps. So what we are going to do, we are going to explore the DCUI screen, Direct Console User Interface screen. What are the options are available? What are the things we can perform in the screen? Okay, so we are going to connect to the console and see what are the options are available. Just open the console and press F2. In the bottom screen, we can see that what are the options are available in DCUI screen. Only two options, press F2 or press F12 to shut down or restart. F2 is to customize the screen. As soon as we connect it to console, just you need to open console and you will find the options. What are the options you can find? Press F2. Customize the screen, customize the system. F12 is an option wherein we can shut down or restart. So what we are going to do, we need to configure the system. What are the options are available? We need to explore. So press F2 and enter the password. So once press F2, the screen is going to come. There is an option, click on full screen. In the menu, there is an option, click on full screen. Perfect. So here, the first option is this is as soon as you press F2, this is the option wherein we can configure or change the password. To change this password, what are the password? Old password is required. You should be able to log into this ESXi host. Make sure what are the password you set, you remember. You should remember. Otherwise, you need to reinstall entire operating system. There is no option to reset the password, forget the password, how to retrieve the password, how to restore the password. There is no option to restore the password. Okay, so the screen is going to go for blank means if the screen is idle for certain minutes, certain seconds, the screen will deactivate. It will go inactive state. It will go to an inactive state. So we need to make sure on the keyboard, if you press any button, space bar or down arrow or up arrow, the screen is going to activate. Press down arrow or space bar to activate. Okay, so make sure keep on press down arrow or up arrow so that the configuration is going to change. Okay, so in the screen, what are the options are available? There is an option first. What we are going to do? We have to change the IP address. We have to configure the IP address. To configure the IP address, what is the must and should required? The NIC card, the network interface. The network interface is available or not. We can see under configure management network. What is a restart management network? Restart management network in the sense certain times, what will happen? It is going to hang or if you want to change any settings or to take into effect that what are the changes we changes, that is going to take into effect as soon as you initiate a restart management network. Okay, test management network. What is a test management network? What are the IP address you configure? What are the IP address you set up? That setup is correct, is able to communicate or not. We can do the test communication from here. How do you test in this other operating system? By executing command, ping command to this particular server. But in this particular DCUI screen, there is an option test management network. Whatever the IP address you configure, you are going to configure IP address, subnet mask, gateway, and other components. So what are the components you configure? It should be able to communicate or not. That's what you are going to see, and we can execute test management network. Network restore option. Next option is network restore option. Network restore option in the sense, from 5.5 onwards, you did some modification on the configuration management network. Until that, the configuration management network is working fine and you are able to communicate and everything is working fine. You are testing something. Since then, it is not able to communicate and not able to function properly. So from 5.5 version, there is an auto restore option. If the management network is not able to communicate, system itself, it is going to restore automatically that network settings. It auto restart as soon as if it is not connecting the network, you change some setting, you change the VLAN IP or you change the IP address, you change the gateway, whatever it may be. Due to some change, if the system management network is not able to communicate, simply automatically, as soon as it is not able to communicate, it restores itself automatically. For some reason, it is not able to communicate, and previously it is not communicating. What are the changes you are not sure? What are the changes you modified? What you can do? Network restore options. So that as soon as you initiate network restore options, whatever the previous settings, whatever the settings are there in previous, everything will be restored back. Configure keyboard. During the installation, we selected default keyboard. If you want to change the layout of the keyboard, you can change the keyboard layout here. Troubleshooting options, select troubleshooting options. You can troubleshooting options in the sense to perform certain options. We'll come to troubleshooting section and then we'll understand what is a troubleshooting shell. Here, options in the cell, ESXi shell. ESXi shell in the sense, here in this particular DCUI screen, you are not in a position to execute or type anything. Whatever the options are there, you navigate up and down arrow and then select the desired fields. But there is no option to execute the commands. To execute the commands, there is a shell prompt, Linux prompt, that is ESXi shell. To enable start the ESXi shell in the sense on the console, if you want to execute any commands, you need to enable ESXi shell. Just press enter, troubleshooting options, just press enter. See here, enable ESXi shell, enable SSH. Enable SSH in the sense it is a remote login. In Windows Server operating system, the remote connection, how it is happening through remote desktop connection. For Linux operating system, Unix operating system, to establish communication to this particular commands, to execute certain commands, we are going to use the remote tool, that is SSH. What is a port for SSH? You should understand. Okay, you should by heart these port numbers. Okay, enable SSH. This is a service to enable SSH in the sense it is going to allow remote login. So if you want enable ESXi shell is different, enable SSH is different. Enable SSH is to connect the system. If the system is able to connect in the network, you can connect the system remotely and execute the commands. Whereas in enable ESXi shell is all about console command execution. If you are not able to enable SSH shell, you cannot execute any command on this particular console. On the screens, you cannot perform any command operations in this particular screen. How to enable as a ESXi shell and how to connect ESXi shell, we'll see later. Okay, that is comes under troubleshooting options. First, what we need to achieve? First, we need to understand what is ESXi shell, what is SSH. That's where how to execute commands. We are not going to execute commands now. During the troubleshooting options, we'll come to here again and understand these concepts again. Here, I'm just explaining what are the options are available. You should understand what is enable ESXi shell, what is enable SSH. Okay, SSH is nothing but remote login. If the system is able to establish communication, you can execute command from remotely. No need to connect this particular ESXi host. Remotely you can perform. See here, down arrow, modify ESXi shell and SSH timeouts. That in the sense, if you connected to the system, either ESXi shell console command execution or remote command execution, there is a timeouts. If the session is idle for certain minutes, the session is going to inactivate. Again, you need to log in. Okay, modify DCUI timeout. See here, modify. We are going to change the modification. Just enter here. What is the 10 seconds is there? As soon if your system idle, what is happening? It is going to black screen. It is going to inactivate state. That timeout we are going to change now, so that the screen is not going to inactivate even in ideal situation. You can mention as a 2 minutes. Just mention 2 minutes 120. Here, whatever the seconds here, it is showing as a seconds. We can change up to what is the maximum value? 1440 minutes. That in the sense, those many hours we can set the timeout for DCS screen. But DCS screen, we are not going to idle that much time. Generally, it is 10 seconds or maximum 60 seconds is okay. Because we keep on press the keyboard while working on the console. So why I am changing this timeout? While explaining the things, it is keep on going to black screen. Again, you need to press down arrow, up arrow and all those things to activate the screen. That's the reason I changed the time limit here. Just press enter, okay. I changed the time limit to 2 minutes. Okay. So even modify ESXi shell SSH timeout the same way. Okay. Restart management agents. Whatever the modification you are going to do, what are the settings you are going to modify, once the settings are modified, the settings will take into consideration as soon as you restart the management networks. Because whatever the modification you do, it is must and should you should restart the management networks, management agents, so that it is going to whatever the changes are going to consider. Okay, this is a troubleshooting option. When we are going to come to this session during at the end, how to troubleshoot ESXi host, during the time we'll come to this particular topic. Okay, just single press escape. Okay, view system logs. What are the logs it is available? See here, syslogs, VM kernel, config, management agent, VPXA, view body. These are main system logs available to analyze the issue if any issue comes in picture. You are not able to understand, you are not in a position to go to command line, but you want to see the system logs. Okay, you can come here and you can view the system logs. What log it is important? This is an important interview question also. If you are working on VMware environment, how you are going to execute the commands, that is one thing that we are going to understand during the troubleshooting option. The second thing is that, is there any way without executing the command, how to verify the system logs? Simply you have to say that I am going to connect the console. How you are going to connect the console? Connecting the console is how it is possible. If the server is sitting remotely, how you are going to connect console? This is a physical server. Physical server in the sense there should be a remote management card. What type of remote management cards are available? We'll do one thing, just restart management agents, go to troubleshooting options. It's still taking 10 seconds. Go to troubleshooting options. Go to modify DCUI ideal timeout. Change. It is there. Okay, click OK. Enter OK. Restart management agents. Restart. Just enter. Select that. Press F11. Okay. It will restart the management agents, and what are the actions we did, it is going to take into consideration. Okay, it is from then this time it is going to take 2 minutes time for DCUI screen ideal timeout. Okay, come back as escape. Let it complete. Stopping management agents done. Starting management agents done. Automatically will go back to the screen. Just press escape and go to. Just enter. Okay, escape. Come to view system logs. View to view down arrow. Here the mouse is not going to work. Mouse is not going to work. Only the keyboard. You have to use only keyboard. Mouse is not going to work. Okay, view system logs. So here the screen, what are the options are available, how to view the logs, what type of logs available, because this is one of the interview question, how you are going to manage ESXi host, how do you troubleshoot? Then you should understand how to access the logs. What are the options are available to access the logs? Either I need to connect command prompt in the sense shell prompt. SSH should enable or ESXi shell should be enabled. ESXi shell is a console command prompt. Shell is a remote connection. SSH is a remote connection, remote tool to connect to access the system and execute the commands remotely. That is SSH. ESXi shell is a console command prompt. Okay. So in addition to that, how you can view the system logs. System logs, by what are the types of logs are there? Just Google it and search internet. What is syslog is related to? What is VM kernel is related to? Most of the errors, most of the system errors are comes under VM kernel. If the host management agent, host D logs is related to management connection, connecting to this particular ESXi host, not able to connect, not able to establish communication, then the logs will be available on host D. Virtual center agent, VPXA, if that ESXi host is not connecting to vCenter server, that logs will be available under virtual center agent logs. So what log is important? What is the issue? According to that issue, which log I need to refer? That is comes under troubleshooting. Just I'm giving an overview. What is the logs? Okay. Next, view support information. This is whatever the support information. What is the ID, license information? We haven't mentioned any license key here. The evaluation is there. It will be valid for 60 days. Okay, this product information, support information. Last option, reset system configuration. Reset system configuration in the sense, as soon as you complete the installation, whatever the configuration is available on the system, it will restore to the installation phase. After installation phase, whatever the installation phase you done, basic config, default reset. So network restore option is different. Reset system configuration is different. Network restore option is only meant for restoring management network. Here reset system configuration in the sense whatever the configuration you perform that ESXi host after the installation, everything will be erased and it will go to default setting right after the installation. That is a reset system configuration. Okay, so now we are going to change the configure the network. What is the primary option under this DCUI screen? As soon as we complete the installation, we need to set the IP address. Where should we go? We have to go to the configuration management network. Go to configuration management network and press enter. What option? Press enter or press escape? Everything will be there at the bottom. How to navigate the fields, how to change the effects, how to come out of the screen, everything is there at the bottom screen. Okay, so network adapters. How many network adapters are available? How many network adapters are available? Only one NIC card. All this VMware workstation. This ESXi host installed on VMware workstation. We created a VM under VMware workstation, and during the creation of VM, we selected only one NIC card. So that's the reason it is showing one NIC card. This next VLAN. What is a VLAN? VLAN, we understand that VLAN concept. What is a VLAN ID? If any VLAN ID is provided by network engineer, who is going to provide IP information, subnet mask, gateway, what is VLAN ID, everything information will be provided by the network engineer of the respective organization. So which IP net we assign? As soon as the server is going to deploy, I need to deploy a server. There is a fresh hardware as available on the data center. So as a VMware administrator, I need to deploy the ESXi host. So to deploy the ESXi host, you should understand what is the requirement. What is the requirement? You should be able to connect this particular ESXi host remotely. How do you connect remotely? By accessing remote management card. Is there any other way to connect? You need to understand. Once that information is available, the next option is you should have an whatever the media OS you are going to install, that media should be available. What next? You should have an IP information to configure the IP address. Okay, so to configure the IP address, what is you need an IP address during the deployment, during the build phase. You are going to get all these details as per the request. They are going to mention in any environment if you are working on a build. So what are the prerequisites to deploy? In even interview question also they'll ask what are the things you require to deploy an ESXi host. You should understand to deploy an ESXi host what are the components are required for me. Components are remote access, remote management card, the username and password. What is the IP of remote management card? Once the IP is available, what is the credentials to log in? Once the credentials are available, what is the next? You need to how to navigate, how to connect the console, how to virtual media, how to mount the virtual media to the remote management card. So to mount that ISOMS, where is the amount is done? What is that? Installation is done. Once installation is done, what we are going to do? You have to assign an IP address. Who is going to provide an IP address? Network engineer who is going to provide an IP address. So these are the prerequisites to configure the ESXi host. You cannot directly assign an IP address without accessing remote management card. You are not in a position to assign an IP address. You are not in a position to connect a console itself. So what is the prerequisite is? You should understand, correlate each one. Okay. So who is going to provide VLAN information and IP information? The network engineer or in the build sheet. Whatever the request you are going to receive in that request, they are going to mention all the information. So if that information is available, VLAN ID, you need to mention that VLAN ID. Next, IP4 configuration. Coming down IP4 configuration. Just press enter. press enter. So here that we are going to change the configuration. What is the IP address we are going to mention? I know this environment is in the lab environment. I know what is the IP address is available. So I assign this IP address as a 20. What is the static IP or dynamic IP? If you select the dynamic IP, the environment should have a DHCP server. But as it is a physical server and it is hosting number of virtual servers according to environment, we need to, network engineer is going to design how the IP address should be assigned to this server. If they provide an IP address, that in the sense it should be on static IP. If that build sheet mentions that this should be on a dynamic, then you should select a dynamic so that automatically it will connect to DHCP server and get it the IP address assignment. So as in this environment, we are using for any server, for any critical server, generally we are going to use. So we selected static IP. How to select the static IP? We need to up and down arrow, and to select that respective thing, we need to press space bar. In the keyboard, we need to press the space bar to select the desired option. So we already selected an IP address. How to change the IP address? Come down arrow and you can enter the value. We already entered the value 192.168.222.10t. And what is the subnet mask? What is the gateway? That is the things we did. Okay. Press enter. Okay. So IP address configuration is changed. As soon as IP configuration change, we need to test this configuration. How to test this communication? Just press escape. What are the modification you did? As soon as you press escape, if any modification is changed, it is going to prompt your screen. Do you want to restart management network? If you press yes, that is fine. If you didn't press no, you can restart management network here. Select restart management network and just press enter. Just enter to restart the management enter. It is asking restart management network is now F11. Okay. What it is going to do, restart management agents in the sense some demands, some services. In Windows we call it as services. Here you call it as a demand agents. Okay, demands. Demands is nothing but services. In Linux operating system, Linux type of operating system, we call it as demands. So press F11 to proceed. So it is okay, done. Restart management is done. Now we need to test this communication. Is the communication is happening or not? Test the management network. Select enter. See here, what is it is showing what is IP address, gateway. Whatever the first it is send the communication from this particular host, it is going to communicate the gateway. We enter the gateway, that same gateway it is showing here. What is next? It is assigned a DNS IP. DNS IP it is 22.22.10. We are going to see where to enter the DNS server. Okay. The next secondary DNS, the ping to IP address, it is going to send the communication to DNS server primary and secondary. We are going to see that. Next, resolve the host name. Resolve host name in the sense how it is going to do. It is going to send communication to resolve. What is the error here? Gateway test DNS communication is done, but resolving host name is failed. Why it is failed? That in the sense, this host record is not available for this particular ESXi host on the DNS server. So we need to create a DNS entry for this particular host on the DNS server. If you have the access to your environment, you are going to create a DNS entry for this particular host, or else you need to create a DNS. So what I'm going to do now, for this particular ESXi host, I'm going to create a DNS entry under my DNS server. What is my DNS server? My DNS server is my AD server. We install in Windows operating system installation. So we configure DNS server there. So I'm going to create a host record, host or a record or EEE record. I'm going to create for this 20 server, I'm going to create a DNS entry. Open this 80 server, go to open DNS, share screen once again. Minimize the full screen, same. Click on full screen again so that it will come down. Okay, open DNS record. We install our DNS server on this particular system, so we are going to open DNS. How the DNS server's naming convention, we can create server naming convention, what are the way you want. Select lab.com. Okay, right click on that. Right click on that. New host record. New host record. I'm going to give it as a lab ESXi. Lab ESXi. ESXi1. Okay. IP address. What is the IP address? Lab ESXi1. 192.168.220.20. Select create a pointer record, associated pointer record, the checkbox. Yes. Click at add host. So we created a lab ESXi1. Yeah, okay, no problem. We created, it is done. We created a host record lab ESXi1. So I'm going to mention this particular information in my DCUI screen. Then we test the communication, how it is happening. Go to the ESXi host. Keep it in a full screen mode. Okay. Now come back to this IP configuration. Where to change the IP configuration? What are the changes IP configuration? We have to go to configuration management network. Go to configuration management network. We have to navigate where to change the IP address. IP changes information. Only option is configuration management network. Other things, all other things are just a view information on other things to restart management agents. Whatever the modification you are going to do, only the configuration modification, it will be available under configuration management network. So I'm going to change the DNS entries, DNS host name. I'm going to give the mention the host name. So go to configuration management network. So here we change the IP configuration. Now I'm going to enter the DNS configuration. So where to go? Select the DNS configuration. Here I'm going to mention what is my DNS server, what is my host name. Just enter. This is my primary DNS server. If I have secondary DNS server, I can enter secondary DNS server. If not, leave it. What is the host name? I need to enter a host name now. Down arrow. What is the host name? I created a host record, lab ESXi1. Lab ESXi1.lab.com. It is not a case sensitive, doesn't matter a lowercase or small case, but what are the option it is available, better to mention in a lowercase only. Okay, lab ESXi1.lab.com. Press enter, okay. As soon as you press escape, you change some configuration change here. As soon as you press escape, it is going to ask you, do you want to restart management agents to take into effect consideration, to take the consideration? Just press single escape. If you press double escape, what are the changes it will discard? Yes, it is asking restart management network because I changed some settings on this particular configuration wizard. So that's the reason it is asking restart management network. Press yes. So that is done. Now, what are the changes I did? So I need to test this again. If you are not restarted the management agents, you can restart management agents now, or else come to test management network and execute the test. See how what are the things it is going to test. See here, it is checking the gateway, it is checking the DNS, and it is checking the result the host name is working fine or not. Just test. Okay, DNS communication, everything. See here, previously we got a one failed attempt. Now everything is okay. That in the sense the network configuration is done. Now this ESXi host is ready to connect. How do we connect? In product suite, we discussed about what is the product components, ESXi host, vCenter server, clients. What is the types of clients? Installation type of client and web client. Two clients are available to connect. This is just configuration. Why I'm creating ESXi host? This is just to create a virtual machines. Here there is no option to create virtual machines. So I need to connect, I need to access this ESXi host to perform other actions like creating a virtual machine, creating other functions. Why I'm deploying this ESXi host? To create a number of virtual servers, number of virtual machines. That is the role. So to that, what is how to access this? This DCUI screen, I cannot perform ESX VM deployment, VM create a VM and other options. Okay, so I need to understand, I need to explore what are the options are available on this particular ESX host. In the sense, the only option is the client. So we are going to explore that now. Come to the desktop. This screen is done. This is the DCUI screen. We are done with the configuration. Now this ESXi host is ready to connect, ready to establish communication. Come to desktop and open browser. How to access? If you have the client tool already installed, you can directly install this client tool. How to access how to install client tool? We'll see that. Come to desktop. So what is you know the IP address. So what I'm going to do, I need to download the client. If you already downloaded the client, that is fine. If you haven't downloaded the client, how to download the client and how to connect. So simply as soon as you complete the installation, the first phase, open the browser and type IP address of this particular host. What is IP address? I'm going to mention the IP address 192. In address bar, you just type the IP address 192.168. 222.20. Mention HTTP and other things. Press press Alt so that you will get address bar. Press press Alt and keyboard.
Yeah, not coming. It is not coming.
Don't type HTTP, just type IP address 192. Yes, enter. Any other browser?
No, we need to install it.
Okay. Do one thing.
Shall
Read
we
this
do
first
it
up.
from AD server?
Yeah, you can connect. Open this AD server. Open the browser. Uh, See, this is a screen. As soon as you complete the installation, you are going to see what are the options are available, how to download. This is the first screen. As soon as you complete the installation and after configuring the IP address, after testing the test management network, this is the options are available. What are the things I'm going to do? I can download the first option, download vSphere client for Windows. vSphere client for Windows in the sense, if you are using a Windows operating system, either desktop or server or anything, so it is going to download an EXXi file to install the vSphere client, vCenter client, whatever it may be. You can click on that, download vSphere client. It is going to download the respective site. From it, connect to that respective site and download the VA client. We already downloaded that. No problem. Click close. We already downloaded that. Then what is the next option? Open VMware ESXi VMware host client. This is going to redirect to web client. There are two clients to available to connect this ESXi host. One is installable client. The other one is through browser. How to connect? Click on open the VMware host client. So what it is going to do, it will connect an HTTP browser. We know what is the password, to whom I'm going to connect here, to that ESXi host. So I'm going to provide the credentials for ESXi host. So what is the username? Username is root. Just type root and provide the credentials. You can download in a lab the client tool, and then if the client tool is not available, you can simply use the browser without having any issues. You can select this checkbox or else not a required. Join the CIP means it is going to provide the vendor information. It is going to upload the system logs to the respective vendor. You just unselect this and click OK. So this is a screen. This is a web client, the browser screen. The browser screen is different. From here onwards, I can do my virtual machine configuration. I can deploy my virtual server, user interface, how to go, how to create virtual machines, all those things. What are the options are available? For better understanding, what I'm going to do, I'm going to download the VA client. We already downloaded that VA client. So we are going to connect to the VA client and explore this information. And it's our responsibility to how to access web client the same feature, so that I'm going to explain one client tool. If I am going to explain both the things together at one shot, it is going to create a confusion. So I'm going to concentrate on one client tool, how to connect. So once that is connected, so that it is easy to understand that particular system, and we can able to configure each component under that ESXi host. There are multiple options are available on ESXi host. So we can understand how we have to connect the client and how to access this particular ESXi host, and what are the configurations we can perform by connecting to through client. What's our responsibility is here? whatever the configuration I'm going to do on this client, the same configuration can be done on the web client also. From 5.5 update 3 onwards, whatever the additional features, whatever the additional configurations, the comparison between previous version, higher version, whatever the additional features are going to incorporated by vendor, those additional features are available through only web client. Windows client is not going to provide certain features of that ESXi host. All features are available when you are going to connect that ESXi host through web client. So web client is the easiest to navigate and everything. So you need to understand the both the client tools. So I'm going to provide an explanation on VA client first, so that it is easy to understand the web client, how the features are going to, how to navigate in VA client and web client, so that it is easy to understand the concept. So tomorrow session, I'm going to explore this. Today we discussed about all DCUI screen, what are the options, how to connect and all those things. Now we are going to see how to access the VA client, how we can connect the VA client. We already downloaded, so we'll connect to VA client and at the same time web client. I'm going to share only one option, like what is the option in VA client, what is the option in web client, so that you can navigate, you can refer all the options. I'm not going to explain each and everything in VA client and web client because it is going to create a confusion. It's our responsibility to understand and where that option is available in a web client. How to differentiate from VA client to web client. For a better understanding, you need to practice. Without practice, if you're simply explaining, it is going to create a confusion. So I'm going to explain how to connect this ESXi host through client tool, that is the installable client. From there, you need to navigate the same feature, how to navigate in web client. That's your lab practice. For today, it's over, it's done. Tomorrow session, we'll explore the ESXi host options as soon as we connect through client. Okay, take care. Bye.